Is my screen visible to you guys?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start. So for the today's session, we can jump through about a journey towards a software quality assurance. So basically, I'm discussing about what is software quality assurance and what is the software requirements and how things comes up when you are working in an industry as a software quality assurance engineer. So this is about our agenda for today's discussion. So we will go through what is a software requirement and what is a difference between SRS, and we can go through what is SDLC, software development lifecycle, and we can talk about what is QA, what is quality assurance, and how many types do we have for the quality assurance, and what is a type of testing, and what is a type of functional testing, and what is verification and validation in software testing. And we can talk about the test scenarios and the test cases, and how we can extract test scenarios from the requirements, and how we can extract test cases from test scenarios. Then we can talk about some kind of test management tools, and we can also talk about which test cases we can automate, and we can also talk about the requirement traceability metrics that we needs to be developed when you are working to track any kind of software requirements that you have in your current project. Okay, so let's talk about these things in a slider way. So first of all, when you are working in a software industry, so there is called software requirement. So what is a software requirements? So the software requirement is basically a description of features or functionalities of the target system required to convey the expectations of users from the software product. For example, when you are working in a software industry, where clients come up with you to develop something. So, for example, if a customer comes up to you and he can say that, hey, I want to build up an e-commerce application where people are redirecting to my website and see any kind of product, any kind of things, and purchase it through my website. So this is called a software requirement. So software requirement could be anything that client wants to develop. So if clients come to you and say that I want to build something, some products or some kind of software, so he is interested in building up some things. So that is called a software requirement. So software requirements come up with a piece of paper or something like a requirements that have current features and some kind of things available to develop for the clients. So this is called a software requirement. So what is a software requirement? So software requirement is a piece of paper that describes the functionalities that client wants to build up from you guys. So you are a software developers, so you are fulfilling the client requirements. So clients has the knowledge that what he needs to build up, and you have the knowledge how you can build up these systems. So clients come up to you in the form of software requirements. And what the software requirements contain, the functionalities and the features that clients need to be built up in their project. Okay, so how this software requirements come up? So software requirements has basically come up in three different things. The one is for the SRS, the other one is for the FRS, and the other one is for the BRS. So uh, what where these kind of requirements come up in what formats? So basically these requirements comes from the client in software requirement specification form, and in functional requirement specification form, or in business requirement specification form. So how these three documents make a difference with each other? So SRS is basically a resource provided by a company. So basically SRS has contains a high level description about the client, that what he wants to build. So in the SRS documents, there's something like the description of the project and what features clients need to be built in their project. So this is a very simple document in which client expectations will be visible to the stakeholder of the company or the client itself. And what is the FRS? That's called the Functional Requirements Specification. So this document is basically a very detailed document, and it's basically for the developers and the engineers, in which every requirement for the functional aspects of the application can be written. So this is called the functional requirement specification document. And the other document that is called business requirement specification. So in this document, the whole business process needs to be discussed. So this is a very detailed document in which end-to-end business the requirements come up from the clients. So any questions so far? Am I audible, guys?
Yes, you are.
So any questions so far?
Yes. I wanted to ask, does the non-functional requirements also sit around here?
So the non-functional requirements is something like that. The client comes up to you and said that. So there are kind of two requirements. The one is for the functional requirements. Functional requirements is like that. The clients need to build up an application where some kind of functionalities. For example, if client comes up to you and said that, hey, I want to build up a e-commerce website. And what does an e-commerce website do? You have to build up a home page where all the products linked up, and there is a detail page. So customer landing to my detail screen and places my order. So that is called the functional requirements. And what is the non-functional requirement? So client comes up to you and said that, hey, I want to add the security prospectus as well. So you need to check the security of my application or website, or you need to test as a load or stress testing. You can do this type of testing as well as with my website, because when you see that client comes to you that the requirement that my website should be have a load of 5,000 capacity of the users. So you need to test my website on the load of the 5,000 users as well. So this is called the non-functional requirements. So non-functional requirements are the requirements that are not basically links to a functionality of the website. Okay, so the other aspects of the application. So you need to check the performance testing, load testing, and the security testing and penetration testing. So this is called the non-functional requirements. That is not purely linked to the functional requirements. Are you getting my point?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that explanation, Salman. Thanks.
Okay, so your requirements comes up from the client from three formats: SRS, FRS, and DRS. How you can fulfill that requirement in the software development life cycle. So there is a life cycle called software development life cycle. So in this life cycle, the requirements come up to you, and you need to develop these requirements, fulfill that requirement, and deliver to the client, and in which model that you have to pick to pick up these requirements and develop these requirements and implement that requirement and hand over this requirement to the client. So that is called the software development lifecycle. So this whole life cycle works on software development industry, and it has built up on 6 postulates. The one is for the requirement analysis. So first you need to collect the requirements from the client, and then you need to do the requirement analysis. So what is the requirement? What client wants to me to build? So you need to analyze those things. So how you can implement the client's requirements. So first of all, in the first phase, you need to analyze the client requirement. And in the second phase, you need to design the system, how you can design those kind of requirements. So you need to pick any kind of programming language in which you need to build up that requirement. Also, you need to design the system, how this For example, if a client wants you to build uh, an e-commerce website, so you need to design those web pages and how the website look like. So you need to design the system in the second phase. In the third phase, after analyzing the requirements, designing the system, you need to code. You need to implement that client's requirements. So after implementing that, you need to do the testing in the fourth phase. So after the testing completed, you need to deploy that project into the client server. And after deployment, you need to maintain that whole project. So this is a life cycle of software development. So every software requirements come up to you. So it goes on to this six phases. First, you need to collect the requirements, analyze the requirements, design the system, implement that system, testing, perform the testing, deploy that system, and goes on to the maintenance. So this is called the software development life cycle. Okay, so in after software development life cycle, so there is one thing in your mind that what is QA? So QA is basically a quality assurance. QA stands for quality assurance. So IT quality assurance is a process designed to give management and customer confidence that an organization will deliver quality information technology, product, and service. Basically, the job of QA is to make sure that the application is working as per the client needs. So the basic definition of QA is a job to make sure the application is working as per the client needs. So you have the responsibility to check and ensure that the application that you are delivering to the client is properly working. The functionality of the application is properly working and no bugs are associated with this project that you are going to be delivered to the client. So this is called the quality assurance. So when in the past, we can also see that if the quality assurance was not involved, so you can see that 24 years ago, Windows 98 crashed lives on stage with Bill Gates. So whenever you guys see that launch of Windows 98, so Windows 98 just crashed on the stage. So basically, this is a failure when QA was not involved in any kind of software development process. So how many types of QA that we can do in software development lifecycle? So 90% we are doing manual testing. So what is manual testers? In manual testing, the 100% thing that we are doing is human skills. Okay, so we can do uh, things on the manual basis. So any kind of things that manual effort, human effort needed, so that is called the manual test. And 10% we are doing automated testing. So automated testing, some kind of softwares we can use just like QTB, Selenium, or JMeters to automate those test cases. So first we need to write those test cases scenarios on the manual basis. So we 90% we are doing manual testing and only 10% we are doing automated testing. Okay, so this is the type of QA. So what are the types of testing that we are going to perform in any kind of software project? So basically we are doing two types of testing. The one is for the manual, one is for the automation testing. And I can demonstrate to you that 90% we are doing manual testing and only 10% we are doing automation testing. Okay, so automation testing has another hierarchy in which we need to pick up any kind of softwares like Selenium or any kind of things in which we need to record those test scenarios and execute those test scenarios into the application. And what is in manual testing? So in manual testing, so it is purely a human effort. So we can write the test cases and make some critical thinking to test this application. So manual testing has three types. The one is for the white box testing, other one is for the black box, gray box. So white box, what is white box? What is gray box? What is black box? So we can discuss in later slides. So black box testing is divided into two types. The one is for the functional testing, and the other one is for the non-functional testing. So functional testing is purely test the application, purely test the features of the application is called functional testing. And what is the non-functional testing? You can test the other things like performance, security. So if you can divide the functional testing, so functional testing is divided into three types. The one is for the unit testing, integration testing, and the system testing. And integration testing we have drilled down, that is incremental testing and non-incremental testing. Okay, and when you divided the non-functional testing, so non-functional testing divided into three categories. The one is for the performance testing, usability testing, and compatibility testing. And when you can divide the performance testing, so it has been divided into three types: load testing, stress testing, or stability testing. Okay, so I have talked about there are three types of testing, that is called the black box testing, white box testing, and the gray box testing. So what is the black box testing? So black box testing is a testing in which you don't have an idea about the code structure. You have only the instruction, the structure of the application is black box. So you don't have an idea about the structure of the application. You only have the idea about the front part of the application. So that is called the black box test. Okay. What is white box testing? So white box testing is a type of testing in which you have some idea about the code structure as well, and some idea about the internal application as well. So white box testing is purely done on the on when you have an idea about the code structure of the application as well. So example of the white box testing is unit testing. So developers develop the application and do the unit testing. So that is called the white box testing. Okay, and what is the gray box testing? So when you can divide black box testing and white box testing. So black box testing is zero knowledge of the application. White box testing is full knowledge of the application. Just combine these two things to call some knowledge, that is called gray box testing. Are you getting my point? Are you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Any questions so far?
None from me.
Okay. So let's jump on to the types of testing. So we can see that there are three types of testing, that is called black box, white box, and gray box. So further this types, that is called the functional testing, and the other one is for the non-functional testing. So let's talk about what is functional testing. So I can give you an example that functional testing is about to testing the functionality of an application. So you need to test the features of an application. So that is called the functional testing. Okay. So how many types of functional testing do you guys need to be performed in the application? So there are various type of functional testing, but these five types of functional testing that we are frequently used in any application or any software development process. So one is for the smoke testing, GUI testing, functional testing, integration testing, and the regression testing. So when we are going to be perform the smoke testing, okay. So for example, if you are going through in the software development life cycle, so first of all, the requirements come up to you guys from the customer, and you need to analyze those requirements, and you need to build up the system. For example, if you are building up a web application in which you have a 6 modules. For example, you are building an application from the client requirement that you need to build up a time of your employees. And it has certain features as well. For example, if this application has 6 features, like to log the time, collecting the reimbursement from the clients, or employee history. Okay, so these are the modules. So requirements come up to you to develop this application in the form of requirements, and you have these 6 modules to be built up in an application. So developers are working these modules in a chunk of a software. For example, first of all, developers build up the requirement for the first module to log the times. Then after completing the first module, he can jump on to the second module, that logging the time of employee reimbursements, and then he can jump on to the third module. So you can, in the first build, you are receiving only one module that is called log customer times. So smoke testing is then, for example, developers completed their work to develop one module and provide you the build for the testing. Then you guys need to perform the smoke test. Smoke test is a simple test in which you check that if this is this build that provided by the developer is working fine or not. And if the smoke test passed, then you can regression testing and the system testing. So smoke test covers most of the major function of the software, but none of them in depth. So you don't need to test the software in the depth knowledge. So you just need to ensure that the build that provided you by the developer is working fine or not. If it is working fine, you can accept that build to do the proper functional testing and regression testing and system testing. If not working fine, you can reject the build and retransfer to the developers and said that this build is not working. So smoke test, what is smoke test? Smoke test is a simple software test that not cover the major functionality, but in the depth. So you need to just run the cycle to ensure that the build that you are accepting from the developer is working fine or not. And the other thing is that what is the GUI testing? So the graphical user interface testing is defined as a process of testing of the system's graphic user interface. So you need to check the application's graphics, the UI elements, some kind of toolbars, menu bars, dialog bars, and windows that you are using in that application is fitting or not. So you need to check the graphical user interface of that application. That is called the GUI testing. Okay, so the one is for the smoke testing, in which you need to perform only the dry run of the application, and in the GUI testing, you only focus about the UI element of this application. Okay, so that is called the graphical user interface testing. The other testing is called the functional testing. So functional testing is basically a that possess the functionality of an application. So functional testing is performing using the functional specification provided by the client. The functional requirements. So your clients come up to you and said that, hey, my application do these things. For example, if you are working in an application that has 6 modules, that to log the customer times and fill up the customer requirements and do the procurement. So these are the functional aspects of the application. So you need to test the functionality of the application. So that is called the functional testing. Okay. So to check the features of an application as expected by the client is called the functional testing. To do the testing of an application as a functional aspect, that is called the functional testing. What is the integration testing? For example, integration testing is something like that. Your client build up 2 modules of an application. First of all, you have tested the time lock feature of an application, and then you can test the feature procurement of an application. So you need to combine those features and retest the application. So that is called integration testing. So integration testing is combining features to test whole application is called integration testing. So previously you are doing functional testing on the individual aspects. So first of all, you are testing module A, then you can test module B, then you can test module C, then you can recombine all of the module and test the application. So that is called the integration testing. So integration testing is defined as a type of testing where software modules are integrated logically and tested as a group. It is a level of software testing where individual units are combined and tested as a group. Okay, so any questions so far? Okay, so let's jump on to the regression testing. So regression testing is basically a testing. For example, you have tested an application and you have find some bugs in this application, and you can report those bugs to your development team and said that, hey, in this feature I have found 10 bugs. Okay, so your development team accepted those bugs and fix those 10 bugs and provide you the build for the fixes. So when you do verify those bugs against in your application, so that is called regression testing. A type of software testing to confirm that a recent program of or code change has not adversely affected existing feature. So regression testing is nothing but a full or partial selection of already executed tests, which are re-executed to ensure existing functionality works fine or not. Okay. So there is one thing that is called the verification and the validation. So verification is a process in which you have to ensure that have we building the right product. So when you are developing the product, so that is called verification, and you develop that product and verifying that if we are building the right product or not, so that is called validation. Okay, so verification is have we built the right product, and validation is have we built the product right, that is called validation. So let's talk about and understand this verification and validation in the real life example. So imagine yourself going to a restaurant and ordering maybe a blueberry pancake. Okay, so you are in a restaurant and you are ordering a blueberry pancake. So when the waiter or waitress brings your order out, so how can you tell that the food that comes out is as per your order? So you have to assume that you are ordering a blueberry pancake, and how you can assume that the waiters bring your order is really a food that comes out is per your order or not. So the first thing we do are looking at it and notice the following things. So what you are looking to ensure that the order is correct or not. Does the food look like what pancakes typically appears to be? Are the blueberries to be seen? Do they smell right? Maybe more, but you guessed it right. So what is verification and what is validation is? Verification is all when you are yet to eat but are checking on few things by reviewing the subject. And what is the validation? Validation is when you actually eat the product to see if it is right. So what is verification? Is to ensure that to checking few things by reviewing the subject. So you are ensuring that is this a right thing that I have to order? And what is this? That is called verification. And what is validation? When you actually eat the product and see that is it right? Is it the thing that I have ordered or not? So that is called validation. So any questions so far? Are you guys understanding it? Any question?
Must be really tough for you.
No question for me.
Okay, so let's jump up to the test scenario. So basically, what is a test scenarios? What are the test scenarios? So test scenarios are basically the high-level classification of test requirements grouped depending on the functionalities of a module or what need to test at high level. So basically, what test scenarios is one line statement which tell us about what to test. A test scenario has many test cases associated. So test scenarios basically, for example, if you are testing a login functionality, a login form. So how you can test that login form? So you need to develop some kind of test scenario in order to test that form. What are the test scenarios that in the normal perspective, what a login page look like? It accepts a username or it accepts a password. And when you provided the valid username and valid password, so it will accepting your valid credentials and provide you to log in into the application. So that is a valid test scenario. So you need to test the application on the negative side as well. So you need to provide the invalid inputs and check what's the behavior of the functionalities. And you need to provide the alphanumeric characters and uh, some special characters to test if the application is accepting your credentials or not. So these critical things come into your mind is called test scenarios. Let's talk about the test scenarios. So this is probably a test scenario that you are assuming to test in a login page of an application. So, for example, what does a login page look like? So these are the scenarios come into your mind. So first scenario is user should be able to log in only with valid username and password. So first scenario comes to your mind is when you are testing a login page that if you are providing the valid username and valid password, users should be logging into the application. So this is a valid case. Okay, so first scenario come into your mind. What is the second scenario that comes to your mind that user with invalid username and password should receive an error. Okay, when you are uh, providing the invalid username and invalid passwords, then you should receive an error message to this login page. So this is the second scenario that come into your mind. And what are other scenarios that come into your mind that the login page should have an option for the forget password. Also, the login page should have an option for sign up or create an account. Also, the login page should have an option for keep me sign in option. So these are the scenarios that come into your mind to test a login page of your on any kind of application. Okay. So these are the scenarios and how you can drive the test cases from these scenarios. Okay, so what are the test cases? So test case is a document which has a set of test data, preconditions, expected results, and actual results developed for particular test scenarios in order to verify any requirements. So test case acts as a starting point for the test execution, and after applying a set of input test data, the application has a definite output. So what is the test case? So test case is basically the cases that you are performing to test this application. So these are the scenarios that come into your mind. You can also apply the other aspect. For example, user with invalid username and password should receive an error. So you need to apply other aspects, other critical things to test this login feature. So you can provide the alphanumeric keys, the static symbols, the some kind of tricky things in your applications to your what your main purpose to test this application. Your main purpose is to focus on to check the every corner cases of this application to find to catch the bug to ensure that the application is working fine or not. So how you can drive the test cases from these things. So you have written down two kind of test scenarios. The first is for the positive, one is for the negative. So that is one is positive testing. And what is the positive testing is provide the valid username and valid password. You should able to log in into their application. And what is the negative test case for this login page? Invalid username. So how you can drive? First of all, if you are this is the test cases look like the test case document should look like. The first column is test case ID, in which you drive the IDs of test cases. The second column is for the steps. You can provide the steps which you are performing to test this application. You can drive the test data if you are providing any. For example, if you are providing the username and password, so that is your test data. Okay, and when you are performing these steps, what should be the your expectation and what actually is happening, you can write down here. And what is the status, the pass failed, this test case should be pass or fail, or you can provide the copy. So this is how a test case document should look like. Okay, so in your test scenarios, you have defined about the positive testing and the negative testing, and you are just expanding your cases. So that is called test cases. So you are assuming that when I can valid username and valid password, what should be the expectation of the application? Verify that user is able to log in with valid credentials. So the first positive case that you have, if you are providing the valid username and valid password, you should be able to log in into the application. So that is a positive testing. And what are the negative test cases for this application? If you are providing invalid username and invalid password, so what should be happen? User is application with invalid username and invalid password. So you need to check in this application that if you are providing an invalid credentials, invalid username and invalid password, so you should not able to access the application. So you should receive an error message. And what happened when you provide a valid username and invalid password? So you should verify that you are not able to access the application, and you should receive an error message. What you are providing? Valid username and invalid password. So you need to check these kind of cases just to provide the invalid username and valid password. Also, you can check the behavior of the application when you are providing the blank username and blank password. So what should be the behavior of this application when you're providing the blank username and blank password? Also, provide valid credentials of inactive users. For example, your credentials are valid, but your user is deactivated. So you need to check that what's the behavior of this application when you're providing a valid credentials of inactive user. Those cases that if user forget his password, what should be the behavior of this application? So you need to check that redirect to forget password page and provide valid email address. So you need to check it as well. So these are the test cases that you guys need to be covered in order to test any kind of functionality of an application. So what are the test cases? The positive and negative aspect of the application to test every corner cases of the application to ensure that the application quality is working fine, the application is working fine, and no bugs you are going to face in any kind of application. Any questions so far? Okay, so
Salman, I'm going to have
yep,
to
yes,
take some
yes.
questions later, but yeah, you can go
Okay,
ahead.
okay. So then we can drive these requirements into test scenarios and into that test cases. For example, clients come up to you with a requirement that's called the login screen allow registered users to log into the site to access all of the features that their account gives them access to. If they type in their username and password and click submit, the user credentials are validated, and if correct, they are logged in. If they are incorrect, they get an error message. So this is a requirement. So what you guys need to do, you need to create test scenarios from this requirement and test cases from test scenarios. Okay, so you guys can extract the test scenarios from the requirement. First of all, what you guys need to do, guys need to extract the test scenarios from the requirement, and after that you guys need to drive the test cases from that test scenarios. So what is the software requirement that comes up to you? That client requested to develop a login screen that allow a registered user to log into the site to access all of the features. Also, the type in, so what user need to do is to type the username, user logged into the application, and if the credentials are not valid, then user pop up an error message. So this is the requirements come up to your client. So how you can drive these test scenarios from this requirement? So in that, by reading this requirement, the one thing that came up into your mind, the first scenario is if the credentials are valid, then you, so this is called a first test scenario that comes to your mind. What is the second test scenario that comes to your mind? That if the credentials are not valid, then user don't need to access the application. So user should receive an error message. Okay, so this is the second requirement, second test scenario that comes into your mind. So these are the tests that come in your mind by software requirement. Okay, so you can drive test scenarios from the requirements. So you are just by reading this requirement, and you are, what you need to do, you need to drive the test scenarios from this requirement. And after driving the test scenarios, what you guys need to do to drive the test cases from these test scenarios. Are you getting my point? So first of all, any software requirements that come up to you in the form of SRS, FRS, and VRS. So you guys need to understand those requirements, read those requirements, and develop the test scenarios. And after developing the test scenarios, what you guys need to do to develop the test cases, drive those scenarios into test cases. So this all about how you can develop the test cases to test any kind of application. So normally we can do these test case development in Google Sheets or Excel sheets, but there are various test management tools available in the market that you need to manage your test cases or test suites. So that is called a test management tool. So what is a test management tool? So test management tools are used to store information on how testing is to be done, plan testing activities, and report the status of quality assurance activities. So what you need to do in the test management tool, so you can just track your test cases, maintain the execution logs, and maintain the build versions and build versionings of your test cases. Okay, so that is called a test management tool. Okay, so let's talk about the what are popular tools for test management. The most popular test management tool is ZAHEER, test rails, QTest, test link, test flows, and much more. So these are the popular test management tool that comes in the market when you are working in these kind of test management tool that you have to integrate in your any project management tool that you are using. So for example, in the market, the most popular test management tool that we are using is Jira, and Jira is a project management tool, and there are also any also various type of test management tool available in the market. The one is for the Azure DevOps and Asana and Trello, much more. So you can integrate these popular test management tool into any kind of project management tool that you are using to integrate and maintain your effective test cases. Okay. So I have all talked about the cases, the test cases that you are performing on the manual. So one thing is called the manual testing, the other thing is called the automation testing. So you have written these kind of test cases, and you guys need to perform the execution of this test cases by manually or automated. Okay, so there is one thing, 90% we are doing manual testing, we are doing automation testing. So for example, you have write these test cases, and the one thing is that you need to manually execute those test cases. How you can manually execute those test cases? Just to log into the application, just redirect the URL of the application, provide the username, provide the password, and click on the login button and see if the credentials are valid, so user able to log in into their application. So these are the manual cases. So you also have the opportunity to automate those test cases. So what is the automation? So automation is you have to write the script to automate these kind of test cases. So you define a software automation to perform these test cases automatically. So there is no possible way to automate all of the test cases. Okay, so you have write, for example, you have write thousands of test cases, test this application. There can be possible to automate all of the 1,000 test cases, but there are some cases that we are not able to automate. So this slide is called which test case to automate or which test case which you are not automate. So automation a very high effort. You need to maintain your scripts effectively. So test cases can be automated, can be selected using the following criteria. So in which test cases you are going to automate? That are high risk, business critical test cases that are executed repeatedly, test cases that are very tedious or difficult to perform manually, test cases which are time consuming. So these are the test cases which you are going to, why you are wasting the time on the login page. Okay, so you are testing, you are automating those test cases which are high risk. So you need to provide the effort on which test cases that are high business risk, test cases that execute repeatedly, those test cases which are you need to perform frequently. So you need to make some automation scripts and just play the automation script to test this repeatedly effort. Okay, so this is called which test case you can automate. So there is some kind of document that is called the requirement traceability matrix. That is called the RTM. So when you are working in a software industry and you are just tracking the client requirements, so there is a very possible way to forget some of the client's requirements. So there can be a possibility that you modules or some of the expectations from the client when you are working on a software development process. So in order to avoid these kind of things, there is a document called requirement traceability matrix. So requirement traceability matrix is a matrix in which you just map and trace user requirement with the test cases. The main purpose of requirement traceability matrix is to see that all test cases are covered so that no functionality should miss while doing software testing. So this documents ensure that you are not missing any kind of software requirements comes from the client, and you are testing all of the software requirements. Okay, so how this requirement traceability matrix look like? So this look like that. So this is, for example, this is a section called customer log. So user requested a module to develop that is called a customer login. And what feature does your customer login page has? It has two features: the login page and the forget password feature. So you need to write these test scenarios and map these scenarios with your test cases and map the statuses. And if you have found any kind of bug, you can just track the ID of the bug that you have raised. So this is the requirement traceability matrix. So the requirement traceability matrix is a matrix to map the software requirements with your test cases. Okay. So that's all from my side. So any question so far, you can guys go ahead.
Thank you, Salman. I know that was a lot to chew. That's a lot of information for us. But if we were really, really actively listening, I should expect that we're going to have a lot of questions, especially for those of us that are not familiar with this environment.
Okay.
But Salman, thank you. You've done so well. And you clearly defined a lot of the topics and titles and types and kinds of testing. But we also have a few questions here.
Yes.
We have 3 questions in the chat. The first one says, what's the difference between integration testing, system testing, and the system integration test?
Okay. So let me answer that question. So what is the integration testing? So integration testing is to combine both module testing. Okay, so that is called the integration testing. So when you are developing as any kind of software, so you are just developing it on a chunks basis. For example, if you have 6 modules, 6 functional modules in your software testing, in your software product. So you first develop module 1, then develop module 2. Just develop module 1 and do the testing. Develop module 2 and do the testing. And then you can combine those 2 modules and retest the software application. That is called integration testing. And what is system testing? When your all modules has developed. Okay, so your developer has completed the software development and you have deployed that product into any environment, a stable environment. So when you do the testing, that is called system test. And what is system integration test? System integration test is something like that. If your software product has to be integrated in any kind of application, and then you can retest this application, that is called system integration test. As for example, when you are working a software product, for example, in the supermarket, you can see that an application that read the product barcode and enter to the application and see the product information. So you are adding the hardware component in your product. So first of all, you need to design the system in your local environment to do that testing. So first of all, you need to perform the functional testing for the individual modules. Then you can combine those modules and do the integration testing. And when you are uh, then when your application development has been completed, you need to do the system testing. And when you deploy that code to the actual environment, that the production environment, and you can integrate a hardware component as well into that application. So that is called that whole you can test. That is called the system integration test. I hope this will answer your question.
Oh, yes, yes, that does answer the question, especially the example you gave. Yeah, did answer the question. Does anyone else have any question, any follow-up question on that? Okay, I take that as a no. The second question here says, who provides the test cases for test scenarios?
So basically, a software tester is a person who can provide these kind of cases. So he can write these test scenarios in the test cases. So software tester is the person who do these activities.
Okay, so that's clearly stated that the developers do not provide the test cases. The software testers do that.
Yes. So developers has the responsibility to do that development, and software testers has the responsibility to do the testing. So they have has a clear set of idea to test the corner cases of the application. So he is a person to responsible to write the test cases and write the test scenarios of these kinds of stuff.
Okay.
I
Okay.
have a,
Yes,
I have a
please.
follow-up question, please. Yeah,
Yes,
Yep.
please.
so thank you very much, sir. Really appreciate the explanations and everything. My question is, so in this case, is there any effect when a developer, does the testing him or herself? Is it that when we have a separate tester or a QA, so that it will be like a secondary checks, so for somebody outside the development to also check, that makes it that makes it, more sense. Valid in that sense. But what about a developer doing the testing him or herself?
Yes. So this testing is called. I have also provide you the example that three type of testing that's called the black box testing, white box testing, and the gray box testing. In the white box testing, normally developers do the white box testing, and that is a branch is called the unit testing. So developer write their code and do the testing that is called the unit testing. Okay. So normally software quality assurance persons do the testing on not on the code level, so they can test the application on the functional aspects. Normally, software testers do the black box testing usually. So, as per your question, what the developers do the testing, so that is called the unit testing. So, unit testing is not on the functional aspects of the application. So, they do checking their code by passing some parameters that can ensure that the code they have written is working fine or not. So this type of testing is called unit testing.
Okay, so what is the best way to, because I know there are a lot of testings, the different types of testings and stuff like that. So what is the best simple way, if maybe a company, a small project or something, you don't want to go by all the various testing and all those kind of stuff, and the person is developing as testing, what are the testings, the type of testing that at least the person must do as a developer?
So basically, there is a checklist called the DAF checklist. Okay, so DAF checklist is some kind of thing that written down some key specs that developers need to do these kind of things. Check these kind of things that usually uh, happens to crash this application. So, for example, there is two kind of checklist that QA guys or developer needs to be developed. So what developers need to check the basic points. For example, when you are, for example, developers has developed a login functionality.
Mhm.
Okay, so developers need to check the key points for the login functionality. That he need to check that if if the user provide the valid credentials, so the application, what the behavior of their application. Also check that if he has provided the valid error message definitions, naming conventions. So we need to cover that if user provide the invalid credentials and what is the expectations. So developers maintain the error message in the code level as well. So they need to check that he has properly maintained the error cases in their code or not. Also, we need to verify that the standard of the code as well. Okay, so this kind of checklist called the DAF checklist need to validate that they have write the code as per the standard coding perspective or not. I hope I can answer your question.
Yes, please. Thank you very much for that. So, just to make it a point, so a QA tester testing the code or testing the software again is more of a secondary. It's just to serve as a secondary checks, because I do understand. I mean, as a developer, you will still do your testing, maybe UAT, like you're explaining, to test that the software is functioning well. But a QA will do all other testings to, make sure that it's really functioning, it's really, acceptable in its entirety. I just want to.
So QA do the testing on the depth level. Okay, so developers has the only responsibility to develop application, but they don't have a responsibility to check the application is working fine or not. Okay, so there is various kind of other things. For example, if you are developing something, you never said to your work that you have done something wrong. You never judge yourself. You never judge your work. Okay, so the QA person is a person who can judge and review the negative side and the positive side of the application as well. So he can test the application as per the client standard, what clients wants to need to in their business. So he check as per the user needs. Okay, so for example, just make an example about the Facebook application. So developer developed the Facebook application as per the functionality. So he never tried to check as per the user expectation. So what QA needs to do, QA check and apply the negative cases. He need to think about that if a user provide these inputs, if user provides these kind of way, what should be the expectation of the application? What is the behavior of that application after that?
Yep. Thank you very much, sir. Okay. Appreciate it. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you so much. And Salman, let me take you back a little bit, or just take you out of this environment a little bit. Have you had an opportunity to work as a QA within the Agile
yes.
team where the developers are developing within the same iteration and you are also doing the QA tests?
Yes. So basically, in an agile environment, what is agile? So agile is basically based on the four prospectus that's called the Agile Manifesto. It is what to accept the customer changes. Okay, so in this environment, you need to ready to accept the changes from the customer in any kind of software development phases. Okay, so for example, you have developed this login functionality and you have tested this login functionality. And when you are demoing the client and client said that, hey, I don't like these buttons and I don't like these functionality, you need to change that. So when you are adopting the waterfall model, that is the previous approach, so there is no way to go back. But in Agile, you need to redevelop, revamp those functionalities as per the client expectation and retest that and goes to the client and then say that client that, hey, uh, this is your changes that you are expecting to do me. So we have corrected that and please review and then we can proceed further. So Agile is, what is Agile? Agile is ready to accept the change, customer collaboration. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand that, but my
Mhm.
question was channeled towards working
Mhm.
with the developers within the same sprint. You
No,
know?
for there is two kind of sprints. Okay.
Okay.
So when you are working in a sprint that you have to deliver 6 modules. Okay. So after completing those sprint, for example, the login page is on the sprint one. After completing the sprint, there is a meeting called the sprint retrospective. Okay, where you can demo the sprint work to the client. And if your client said that, hey, I don't like this kind of thing, you can revamp this. So you can move those tickets into the other sprint. Okay, but you need to check if this a high priority or a low priority. If client said that, hey, this is a very high priority item that you need to develop. Okay, so you need another sprint that is called the hot sprint. So you need to prioritize that work on the top priority and do this work and deliver to the client. Are you getting my point?
Yeah, I'm following.
Yes. So these these kind of things we can track the customer changes in the sprint wise. So we need to change the iteration of the project.
All
I
right.
hope
So
this answer. Yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead, please.
it did a little bit, but just for the sake of our time, we have 2 more minutes left. But I want to take the last question that Jane asked. She's
Yes.
not on the call, but I'll read out the question. She said, "How do you determine between black box and white box? Doesn't that mean that a tester does not always have to be knowledgeable in the internal design?"
Yeah, basically, I have categorized these two things that white box testing usually do by the developers, okay, and the black box testing usually do by the software testers. Sometimes in some cases, software testers do the white box testing and the black box testing as well. For example, if you have an idea about the developer tools that Chrome has provided to check the API's response and API testing. So you have the knowledge about the API structure and you have testing the application from the what post called and what is the response coming from the server. So that is also called the white box testing. So sometimes usually a software developer who has the knowledge about the APIs and the code structure do the white box testing and the black box testing as well. But usually black box testing do the software testers and the white box testing usually do the developers. This answer your question?
Yes, I
So
mean,
anyone?
I do
Yep.
understand that, but
Hmm.
that part of our question that says, does that mean that a tester does not always have to be knowledgeable in the internal design? How true is that
Yep.
statement?
Yeah, because tester don't want to knowledgeable about the what kind of code structure. So he just only have the understanding that the functionalities of an application is working fine or not. So for example, uh, testers testing an e-commerce website. So what is the purpose of this e-commerce website? That customer login, customer redirect to the application, search any product, add into their basket, go to the checkout page, provide the information, and proceed to the checkout and buy that product. So this is the whole journey. So software tester no need to worry about what code structure or what programming language to use the developers to develop these kind of things. So he only needs to focus on the user journey. So for example, a customer no need to care about what programming language and what application has to be built, what is the structure of that code. So he only care about to buy that product. So the software tester should have a clear focus on the functionality of an application, not to focus about the internal structure and what programming language and what structure do the developer use to develop this. Are you getting my point?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So any more question?
No, that's the last question we have for tonight. And if you all
Hmm.
agree with me, this was a very, very impactful session. And if you would allow us for the next for another 3 minutes to take a retro, and this time around, I want to hear from all the participants how what went well tonight and what didn't go well, and what would you like to have again?
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask a question, but
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead with your questions, sir.
I wanted to ask, as an agile team, they said the developers should be cross-functional. So you as a quality assurance officer, are you not like supposed to work with the developers, like being cross-functional, know their own functions, and them to like know your own, like doing peer programming or peer review for you to like review their work, know a bit of what they're doing, they know a bit of what you're doing. So if you're not around, another developer can take um charge of your own, that's a testing part, or it doesn't work that way.
Sorry, come again, please. I can't hear your question properly.
Okay, like in an agile environment
Hmm.
whereby Scrum team is supposed to be cross-functional. So
Hmm.
if you work with the developers, so there's something like peer programming or
Hmm.
peer review for you to be able to each
Hmm.
at least each teammate should know one or two other person's work in case one
Hmm.
person is on leave. So now you as a tester, don't are you not supposed to know a bit of maybe another developer's work? And in case the person
Hmm.
goes on leave, you can also like stand in for that person.
Hmm. So basically, in this cases, so we have a team. For example, we have a development team and we have the QA team in which 2 to 3 QAs are working simultaneously in any kind of project. So there is a meeting called a Scrum meeting. So in which in this Scrum meeting we can discuss about the daily progress of this project. If a QA person is unavailable. So if any kind of discrimination happens in any project, so we have to discuss these kind of things in daily Scrum meetings. And if any kind of things happen. For example, the requirement has been changed, or the strategy has been changed, or if any kind of delay in this kind of thing. So there is a project manager who has the responsibility to track these kind of changes and to do these kind of things in daily standout meeting. So project manager discuss, listen these kind of problems, and he can timely try to resolve these problems before the risk arises to this application. So I hope I have understand your question clearly.
No, so the question she
Can
asked
I come in?
was,
Can I
okay,
come in
go ahead,
small?
Thomas. Go ahead.
Yeah. So my
Hmm.
sister, yeah, I think what we have to get is that QA could
Hmm.
be a technical person
Hmm.
or not. Okay. So the
Hmm.
QA can be somebody who knows, developing, coding or something like that. And a QA could also be somebody who doesn't
Hmm.
know coding, to be
Yes.
precise. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. So that is what my sister. We all have to get it right. Okay. And and the fact is that the main function of the QA entirely, is to take the software after it's developed, just put it that way, and then test it. And what is the testing? Putting the figures, or putting the whatever, if it's login or whatever, you have to put in like the person is using it. Okay, your client is using it typically. So the QA is more or less representing your client. Okay,
Yes.
so
That's right.
yes, so the developer finishes the software, and you, the QA, representing the client, you take the software and you test it. You use it like the client is using it. Okay,
Yes.
so a client is not a coder or a developer per se. You see, so a QA is just representing, let me say, the customers. So the customer, okay, I'm going to order some items in the software. I'm going to keep them in the cart, this and that. I'm opening an account, my name, my username, password, everything. So a QA is doing all this on your behalf to see that it's going to work. So he doesn't have to be, a technical person like a coder, but if you know how to code, it helps you to communicate faster, maybe with the developers and
Yes.
the architects. But it's not a basis for going into a QA. It's not a basic. You can either be or not.
That's totally correct. That is a very descriptive definition of what's role of developer and a. So QA do have the knowledge of the coding or do not have a knowledge of the coding as well. So the main purpose of the QA is to ensure that the application that we are going to deliver to the client is working fine or not. So you need to check the corner cases of that application. So QA is a responsible person who can check the negative cases and the positive cases of an application. Doesn't care about what the internal structure of an application is. So developer has the responsibility to develop these kind of things. So he has a proper knowledge of the coding standards and the coding programming languages itself. But no need to worry about a QA person if he has the knowledge of the coding or he don't have a knowledge of the coding. So he only care about the functionalities of an application, the functional aspects of an application. So the application as a functional perspective is working fine or not. That's it. So if we are delivering this to the client, and if a client reviewing this application, and if he is not catching any bugs, so that is called your application is very stable. So you guys are using social media application. So guys don't face any kind of bugs in that application. So this application is stable. But before in this hierarchy, when this application development, so there are lots of bugs reported. So QA is a person who can check every corner cases of the application. to ensure that the application is stable and no more bugs users or real life users find in your application. Are you guys getting my point?
Thank you
Okay.
for that explanation, really. But um, for the sake of time, right? I would like us to wrap up, but Safi's
Hmm.
question was just channeled towards, when we talk about cross-functional teams,
Hmm.
talk about having an idea of what each person
Hmm.
does in order to ensure that when one
Hmm.
person is not available, we're not going to be
Hmm.
totally blanked out. Another person
Hmm.
who has an idea of what you do can pick up the
Hmm.
work, if not in depth, at least
Hmm.
in the surface. So she was asking if that's the same thing that applies to you as a QA.
Hmm.
Could you also, or do you also have an idea of what some of the developers do when you are on a project?
So basically, that you one if a one QA person writes the test cases, and if he is not available, so the other QA person can review those test cases and perform the same testing. So he get an idea about what the other person is doing. So basically, what QA person is doing? QA person is just writing the test cases and perform those test cases into the real application. So he is not doing the exploratory testing. So he has maintained a proper documentation in order to do that. So if he is not available, so other person can pick up those documentations and provide those testing. So he can just pick up those test cases and execute those test cases in the real realm. So he can get the idea what the other person has written in their test cases. So there is a proper documentations available. So other person can pick up those documentations and provide this testing.
So, I think maybe Margaret, what Safir asked, I understand, and we understand it. What I think we have to understand is that cross-functional is accepted, and that's what we all do. Okay, we help each other. But the fact is
Yes.
that you can either be a developer, I mean, you can know something in terms of technical stuff and or not as a QA. Now,
Yes.
and you can learn too. If you want to learn and go forward and learn, how to code, that one is, is your own. But I
Yes.
don't think that in most cases, like in a company and, people are, working back to back, you even get time to go and learn how to code. I mean, but you can do that, but the fact is
So
that
basically,
in reality, we are cross-functioning, but the fact that if you want to go forward and learn coding, you can do that. And so the person is not there, you can help and also code. That is fine. But the fact is that you can be a technical or non-technical for QA. That is it.
so basically, if you have the understanding to write the code, then you are not allowing to involve in developers' work. Okay. So you have a specific role only to test their application. You don't want to interfere in the developer's work.
Right. Good
And
evening. Good evening. I just wanted to clarify based on the same thing that we're talking about is I think that the main team, the cross functionality is within the team. The QA is pretty much like external in this because it's just coming there to see what the team is doing. So the cross functionality will be within the team and not really from the QA, stepping in when the developer is not around. That's just what I feel. Mr. Tumasi, you can, you know,
Yes, I understand your point. That is true. But in reality, I'm talking about in reality. Okay. So like you are explaining in cross-functioning is not just about kind of taking over somebody's work when the person is not around. being able to collaborate with each other to provide informations, and also, when the person is not there, it's not just about sitting down and doing the coding. You see, so cross-functioning, collaboration, all those things come together. Okay, but what we have to understand is that as a QA, you can be a technical. I mean, they are software engineers. I mean, my team, for instance, they do their own requirements, they do their own testing, they do their own coding. You see, as they're architects, developers. So, and me, I don't do coding. I don't even do testing. I write requirements, I do project tracking and all those kind of stuff. You understand? Yes. So, but we are cross-functioning in the sense that if the person is not there to write requirements, I'm there to write, that kind of thing. But in terms of coding, I cannot code. I cannot code. So when we are talking about testers, we are talking about QA. The first thing is that a QA can be a developer and or non-developer. That's the first principle. And for collaboration and for cross-functioning, if you know how to code, then the person is not there, you're going to code. If you don't know how to code, how can you code? You see how is it? So that is it. If the person is not there and you can code, you want to learn and help, that's fine. You can do that. Yeah, but the fact is that it might not even be a must, kind of, in many organizations that, as a QA, you have to, by all means, know how to code so that when the tester, the developer is not there, you can go and, code. Yeah, so let's understand cross-functioning, and let's understand, like my sister rightly said, if somebody is a developer and another developer is not there, he can take it up and say, okay, there's less stories or less, let me finish up for him. He can do that. It happens in my team, but not like a tester, going to code. Maybe another tester can also do your work as a tester. You see how is it? A business analyst can also do your work as a tester. So a business analyst can say, okay, let me do the testing, because, you can do it. You don't have to be a developer to do a testing. And a tester can also say, okay, the business analyst is not there, let me write the requirements. So that is cross-functioning. So when you have the same level of skills and stuff, you can, interchange and help each other. But in the sense of coding, you can't straightly go and code unless you learn. If you want to learn, I'm saying you can do that, but it's not mostly a must. Yeah. Okay.
So you can not pick up the developer responsibility. For example, if a developer is not available and you are the QA and you have the knowledge about how to write the code, but you are not allowing to do the coding because a developer has written the code in their own mindset. So the other developers, so if he is not available, so other developer can pick up their task, but not a QA person do the coding. Okay, so QA person is only responsible to test this application. So same like as a developer, if a QA person is not available, so developer cannot pick the developer task, QA task, and do the testing. So there, in this case, the cross functionalities, the cross domains is not possible from the QA and the developer perspectives. But for example, if a business person is not available, so QA can take up the responsibility and write the requirements. So it can be possible, but QA not take up the responsibility from the developer sides. So he cannot allow to write the code in the absence of the developer.
Yep. Perfect.
Yes, thank you so much. And one thing, I want us to come back again with this question. There's a lot to deal with in this question. One, we're going to have to talk a lot more about team cross-functionality. Now, we also want to talk about the QA involvement in the team within an iteration or a sprint. And that means, would they work with the team within that iteration, or they have to wait for development process to be done before the process proceed with QA, probably for some of those modules that are already concluded. So those kind of conversation we may have, and hopefully we could have SALMAN back again. And that depends on the team. If you guys want SALMAN back, we can have him back. But I want us to make sure that we're going to be highly participants participating in the session, and don't make it boring. Don't just have someone talk all through. When he needs your questions, just so that he's able to check and balance what he's doing, let's get it all going. Or we keep the questions through to the end, and we can have it just the way we did today. But for the sake of time, we would really, really do have to hold it up here. And yes, and we can continue this conversation again on another within another packing lot, or meet after, which we can schedule. So yes, Salman. So I want us to just give Salman any word for Salman tonight.
Thank you very much.
In fact, he has done a very great job.
Yeah, I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you very much, sir. Yeah, very good explanations and very, very good one. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. It's my wonderful pleasure.
Salmon, I really appreciate